How truly blessed I am to have such fine children.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my channel if this is your first time. This is a book review video. And it's a book I've just read and I wanted to do a video of it. And I don't do that many book review videos. I'd like to do more, but I don't read as many books as some booktubers who read like 30, 40 a month or something, or even more. I read on average about 6 to 8 books a month, and this month I've read less because I've been on holiday. The previous month I read less because of some personal stuff. So yeah, that is part of the reason why I don't just do tons and tons of book reviews every week. And also, it's got to be, I don't review every book I've read. So basically, I'll do a video just about that one book if I feel like it's either something that lots of people are talking about, I've finally got to read, or something like that, or it's something that I thought was unusual or worth talking about, and you know, I felt like I had something to say about it that wasn't it wasn't too generic or whatever. So that's definitely the case for this. So this is The House on the Cerulean Sea, and this came out in 2020, so it's been out a few years now. And when it did come out, it was a massive success. So I had already heard a lot about it, but I had only heard opinions. I didn't really know a lot about the plot, and the setup of the plot is described on the back of the book. So in that sense, this video is going to be mostly spoiler free, but there will be a few mild spoilers that you can, the kind of thing you see on the back. I think I'm going to add a few other bits that I don't think they're going to spoil the story, but it gives you a sense of the fantastical elements in the book, and really the limit to the fantastical elements of the book as well, if you like, or it might hint at that, because I won't go too far on that because then it'd be more spoilery. But there is a sense that it is a fantasy book, but it's not. It's definitely rooted in reality, and it's only fantasy really to get this sort of general point that TJ Klune is trying to make about difference. So that's the big thing with this book. So TJ Klune is a very public queer writer, and that's kind of a mission, if you like, to put out positive stories with that in mind. It's not. It is in this. There is that queer element, but it's actually not really the main point of the book. I would suggest it's in there, and it drives part of the story, but it doesn't drive the biggest point in the story, I think, which is about celebrating difference, which is why I like the book. So yeah, I had heard about it a lot, but I kind of had it in my mind that I might read it. I really love the cover, so I was kind of seduced by the cover a little bit as well. I really love the cover. And who's done the cover? The cover is by, that is well small. Can I read that? Red Nose Studio? That might say Red Nose Studio. I can't quite read it. That sounds a bit like Comic Relief, doesn't it? Anyway, I really love the cover. It's very much up my street. Love that kind of artwork. So when people talked about it, it did stay in my mind as something I might get to. And basically, I've made I've become friends with a lovely guy on BookTube called Book Buds. His channel he shares with his friend Mary, but Joe is the guy that I've become friends with from Book Buds, and this is his favourite author. He met up with him recently, and that was kind of my catalyst really to actually get the book and think, right, let's read it. And then I took it with me on holiday, and I finished reading the book I was intending to read early, thinking it wasn't the right time to read it, and thought I'd pick this up. And it gripped me straight away, and it was certainly the right thing for the right time. It's not the best book in the world, I think. I mean, Joe obviously thinks it is. I don't think it's the best book in the world, but it is a really good book, and I really enjoyed it. And I think its main point is put across really well, and it definitely sells its mission well. It sells the ideology of celebrating difference really well, which I think is really important. It's a really important message. So what's the book about? It's about Linus Baker, who works as a social worker, if you like. So he works for the department in charge of magical youth. And he basically evaluates orphanages and decides if they should stay open or not. So he's like Ofsted, but for orphanages, and specifically orphanages for magical youth with magical powers, which is the fantasy element, clearly. And he gets summoned by the extremely upper management, that's what they're called, and they say that they've got this very special mission for him, special job, and he's got to look into these particular children, where they're living, what their conditions are like, and what this guy Arthur Parnassus is like as a foster carer, if you like, for these children. And they tell him it's dangerous, and they tell him to beware, and he just goes ahead because because his life is pretty mundane, and he's put upon by his bosses in his normal job, and he's kind of mocked a lot by his co-workers, so he kind of sees it as a good chance to sort of get away from that, if you like, and he's like, yeah, fine, and he doesn't really imagine the danger that he might be in. Although I would suggest that is one of the things, I'll get into this later, but there isn't really a lot of danger in this book anyway. But he is instructed to evaluate this orphanage and tell them, give them reports, and to say if it should be kept open or not. So that's the idea of the book. And the book kind of discusses a few things really through doing that. It discusses the power of an authority to drastically affect marginalized people's lives, because ultimately these children that he's looking at, they might be children with magical powers, they might be supernatural people, or sort of people that you might see in sort of fairy tale fantasy kind of setups. That might be true, but really those characters are metaphors for people that are different, people that are on the kind of margins of society, the minorities. That's really clear, and it's not a very heavy book, so it's got an extremely light touch all the way through it. So it's putting that metaphor across in quite a gentle way. And I'd suggest it's quite a humble book in that sense. It's not ramming a point home really violently. It's just gently suggesting that people with difference should be treated with respect, I think. So that's kind of what the book is doing. And it celebrates the difference. It celebrates empathy, because the one thing that's true for Linus Baker, the main character, is he is always pushing this idea of being empathetic to the people around him, and really quite quickly cares about the children that he's watching. There is a side plot that's also being part of the drive of the narrative, which is his romantic feelings in the book as well. But those are, I honestly think, even though that's where the queer element is, and there's people kind of putting on the back here saying things like being wrapped up in a big gay blanket. That's a quote from V.E. Schwab. It didn't feel like a big gay blanket, because I don't think the gay element is that strong. It's there. There's no doubt about that. And if you have issues with that, then clearly you won't like that element. But it's not. I think the biggest element in the book is the children, the characters in the children, the way those children are developed, and his relationship with the children. They are in a lot more than the principal characters interacting for this developing queer relationship. The children are the thing that really drives the book. The children are the thing that I thought was the most interesting part, and compelling part, and actually endearing part as well. I don't think the two main characters that have this relationship, I don't think they've got much of a personality, actually, not massively. So you don't really feel as connected to them as you do with the children. I don't think this is a massive spoiler. Apologise if you do think it is, to tell you what kind of fantasy element we're talking about. The children, there's a were-dog in the makeup of the children. There's a sprite. There's a gnome. The gnome was my favourite character. I thought she was lovely, and I really, really liked the gnome. And there's a wyvern as well. There's also a kind of a, how would you describe it? Like a blob that doesn't have any reference to any specific archetype or legend, but it's just this blob. And I think that's there just to kind of think, he's trying to think of things that are different. I thought, I'm going to go way off in the distance and just have a blob in it, which I think is quite fun. So that was good. And the last character, which does actually get mentioned here in the back, so I feel like I can mention it, is the son of Satan. So that's also one of the characters in there, which is why his extremely upper management tells him that it's a dangerous job. The thing is, I don't think a lot of dangerous things happen. There's a really nice scene in it that is about 2/3 of the way through it, which is based around this character that's the son of Satan. That's a really, really good scene. It's one of the best scenes, possibly my favourite scene. And I won't tell you what it is, but it comes out of nowhere, and it's just it's quite a vivid scene, and it works really well, and it moves Linus's character forward a bit as well with his relationship with the children. So I think that's a really good thing, actually, that the characters are really what's driving the book, specifically the children's characters. And the children's characters have all got, they're very childlike, so I think that's really authentic. So they've got a very small vision of the world, a very small attitude to the world, very humble, and what they get excited about are really small things that you wouldn't necessarily get excited about as an adult. So I do think that's a really lovely thing as well. I'm going to make a comparison with two other authors, Becky Chambers and Travis Baldree, because all three of these authors probably, well, no, actually, yeah, they're all in around the same sort of time. So TJ Klune, Travis Baldree, and Becky Chambers, all three of them are being driven by feeling like outcasts. They're writing with a queer eye, if you like, and trying to push positive stories out there for the LGBTQ plus community. So they're all doing that, and all three of them are creating this new wave of cozy fantasy or cozy science fiction. In the case of Becky Chambers, and I did like Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree, but I didn't like it enough to be driven to read another one. I think I'm curious to read another TJ Klune one. I think there was more in this, but there is loads more in Becky Chambers stuff. I think Becky Chambers is a better writer. I think TJ Klune's prose is quite plain, so he's very good at writing characters. So that's really good. That kept me going. That made me really enjoy the book. But the actual words themselves are quite plainly put on the page, which is fine. It's absolutely fine. But I think Becky Chambers has a bit more of an interesting way of writing. And it's far more complicated what she writes as well. And the dilemmas of the characters are deeper and more serious, I think. And there's even though she does get accused of having no conflict, there is more conflict in her books. And more risk as well, I think. And possibly more risk as an author. I think this was quite a safe bet. It's a safe bet as a reader. If you read the first 30 pages and you're enjoying it, you'll like the whole book, I think. So he did play safe a little bit, I think, with the narrative. And I do think it could have been less cozy, but still would have remained cozy if there was a little bit more threat in the story. So I do think that's true. And I really don't think there was much development in Arthur Parnassus's character. There was some, but not a lot, and it was all based around the kids, really. So I do think that's true. But the thing with Arthur Parnassus is that he seemed to be the reason why the management team kept pushing for the school to be investigated. But their motivation seemed a bit odd. It didn't seem to be very clear why it was such a serious problem to look into the school. It was a bit funny. So I do think that's true as well. But really good book. Definitely going to read more by TJ Klune, and I'd say read it if you think you would like a cozy story. And that's the word gets bandied about a lot, but it's genuinely very fluffy, very friendly narrative, and it's a very easy read. But as I said, it's the characters that won over for me, and I thought it was a really nice concept, and I really like the gnome. So there we are. That's my thoughts on the house on the Cerulean Sea. Let me know in the comments below if you've read it and what you think. And thanks a lot for watching. Stay curious, everybody.
Paint me a picture of what it's like to be